Welcome to today's installation video. Today we'll go through the step-by-step instructions on how to fit a Supa4x4 roof rack to your 4-wheel drive. Today's vehicle is a 2019 Mazda BT50. So here we've got the mounting brackets. We then go to the mounting platform. We've got the mounting feet down to the car, nuts and bolts to hold all the brackets together. Then we've got the nut plates that mount the feet to the platform. So first we're going to assemble the roof rack with the backbone mounts to the roof platform. We're going to use a 13mm headed bolt, a spring washer, a flat washer, and then we've also got this nut plate. On the nut plate you can see the little grooves. They need to face up towards the head of the bolt. So we'll put it in here. You want to be able to put it in there inside the roof rack rail, and then it'll twist as we do it up. So we'll do the same on this side. Once again, 13mm headed bolt, spring washer, flat washer, and the nut plate. A couple of turns so that way we can sit this in. And then as you turn, that nut plate will turn with it, and it swings around until it locks into place. We just want to do them loosely at this stage. This one did fall off on me. We only want to do them loosely at this stage because we want to get a measurement from the vehicle just so we can work out what width we need to set these at, just to make it a little bit easier when we go to lift it onto the car. So that's still loose enough that we can slide it to get the right. We're also going to fit the mounting feet to the bracket just to help us get the right line up on the roof to be able to drill the holes. They're loosely, they are coming out as well, so you don't need to put all the washers on there just yet. That's just there to hold it loosely in place. So we've got the plate. There is a spring washer that goes on here as well. It doesn't have to go on now because this will get pulled back apart. On final installation, these little feet will be mounted onto the vehicle before the roof rack. I will just show you on this bracket, there are two holes to adjust the height of the roof rack on the car. It'll all depend on your car and weather to try and get the rack sitting as flat as possible. So you'll choose that once we sit the roof rack onto the car. Now we'll move on to pulling the roof lining down inside the car to be able to gain access to where the holes will be drilled and the nuts and bolts will be inserted. We'll need a few tools to do this. We've got a 6mm quarter drive socket, a couple of Torx bits, a T20, a T30, a T50, a small pick, and a couple of trim removing tools that'll help get the inside trim apart and get that hood lining down ready for installation. So we're going to have to remove the grab handles, the sun visor. We'll also have to remove the seat belt, the pillar trims as well. We'll start by taking these two handles off. So carefully we want to get in underneath these little trim covers. They just pop straight off. And in there is where we use our 6mm quarter drive socket. Make sure we don't lose the bolts and hold that on. Put them neatly on the floor so we know where everything is. We can pull that seal down, which then we can gain access to this trim. There's a couple of metal clips there that hold that on. They come apart nice and easy. We'll We'll get the sun visor out of the way. The clip up here is a little bit, can be a little bit delicate, but it just pries off around. I'll show you what those little retaining clips look like once I get it off. A little bit fiddly to get out, and we've got some little retaining clips on the sides there. We want to try and pop those off and remove that. And there we have the T20 Torx bit. And then we've got the little holder there for the sun visor. Gently pry that out. It doesn't come all the way out, it'll just hinge towards the front of the car. And we've got the T20 Torx bit again. We'll get this grab handle up the top here. Once again, little bolt covers, they don't come all the way off, they just hinge up towards the roof again. And they're the T30 Torx bits. Now we'll remove the trim over the seatbelt bolt. There's a few different clips on it that you got to try and get off gently. It'll just pull away. And we've got the clip down the bottom there is the main one, and then we've got a couple up the top. That's the T50 Torx bit. There's a little locking washer on there that holds all that together. Now we can pull this side trim off with the metal clips. We just got to pull this bottom trim off a little bit just to be able to gain access to it. You just jump in the back door. Back here, we'll remove this door seal out of the way. Pop that lower trim just off the top one there to make it a bit easier to get that top trim out. They can be a little bit tricky. They've got little metal clips on there that hold them in, can be a bit tight. Just the metal clips there. Sometimes they do pop off, you just have to take note if they do, and then if they do, you're just going to have to go find them in the car. They will just normally drop down the trim. Next we'll move on to this grab handle, and we'll also take the rear seat belt off. Rear seat belt is, the trim just pops up again, unclips at the bottom, and then just pivots upwards. T50 Torx bit again. same as the front. It's got the little locking washer on there to hold it all together. Seal down, and we'll just pop this back trim off as well. This rear one can be a little bit trickier. The clips are in a different spot. And then also the hood lining does slide into the top of that and makes it a little bit tricky as well, but that one's out enough now. Now that's down far enough that we can gain access to where we need to be, so I'll move on to the other side. Yep, so we'll repeat the same steps on this side, taking the grab handles off, the sun visor. Probably going to be a little bit hard with the camera there, but there's the spots up in the roof. We just should be careful. This big white strip here, the cloth, that's the airbag, so we don't want to damage that in any way. Be very careful with that. There is limited room, but enough to get your tool in there to do the nut hub when it comes through. Whether you can see, there's some cutouts. You can see where that finger is there. There's two little cutouts in the trim. Oh. To help with installation, I like to measure the width of the roof, just to get an approximate measurement, just so we can set the roof backbone mount on the platform, just to make it pop up. Not ideal. So just set it as close to even as possible. You want to make sure the distance from the edge of the rack to the bracket is the same on both sides, just so that the roof rack's centralised on the car. It's not, so it's a little bit fiddly, and we just got to take the measurements and adjust it to suit. So with the help of a friend, we want to sit the roof rack onto the side runners and we want to sit it in the center of that. Be careful not to damage the roof as you lift it up. So next we're going to mark on the roof rails where we need to cut the rubber channeling out and drill the holes. Making sure that it's sitting in the right spot in regards to the bolt holes on the inside, which we've got it spot on. So you centralise the bracket where we want it to sit on the rubber channel. Take a pen and just mark the footprint of the bracket. And that way we can cut and remove the section of the foot rail, so that way the roof rack sits down inside the roof channel. Move on to the front and do the same on the front. We're just marking front and back because we removed the whole section of rubber out of there, so we can gain access to those channel rubbers to cut them and remove them. Now with the trim removing tool, we'll just gently lift up this side trim. It is held down with double-sided tape, and we can use a knife to just score that, being very careful not to scratch the roof or yourself. And then I'll use a pair of scissors. The rubber is quite thick, so it takes a little bit to cut. Difficult. We should remove a section roughly around the same size of the foot. We'll move on to the front one. Once again, just gently lifting up the seal. It'd come all the way off. We can re-glue that down with some double-sided tape later. We'll move on to the other side. Just need to keep that front little bit because that goes back on there. Remove the feet off the roof rack. Taking note, on this particular vehicle, we've got two different brackets. The larger footprint bracket is for the front, the smaller one is for the rear. So make sure we get them in the right spot. We want to sit that in the middle of the roof channel where we've cut the previous rubber out. So it wants to be center of that, and we're going to mark the holes. Just making sure that once we've marked both of them, that they're in the center. Take the foot back out, center punch. We'll mark the center of the holes. Ready for drilling. We'll just double check that the holes are still in the center of those brackets. Once we drill them, we can't change it, so. And we'll do the same on the back. we'll just, in the channel as well, sometimes if you've got double-sided tape or a little bit of dirt in there, we just want to make sure we clean that out of the way. Mark the holes with the pen, mark the center with the center punch, and we'll just double check it before we drill it. Next, we can do the other side. So this side I've got a little bit of double-sided tape I need to remove first, just so that bracket sits flat. Once we've drilled the hole, we'll give the hole a good clean up before we paint the edge of any bare metal that we've drilled. Double check that up. So we're ready to drill the holes. We'll start with a 4mm pilot hole and then we'll drill them out to a 6mm to match the bolts. Taking note and being careful, the airbag is close inside there, so we'll just make sure we keep it out of the way while we're drilling the hole. So just change to the 6mm bit and we'll take these holes out a little bit bigger. We just want to make sure the holes are nice and clean and that there's no burrs on there. If needed, remove the burrs off the hole. These ones are pretty good. Move on to the front holes. I just like to double check the holes just to make sure they are right before I drill them. Same again, just make sure the airbag is out of the way when we drill. Make sure it stays. Sometimes the drill bits do move, so just make sure your holes are going in the right direction. Doing that? Yeah, we're just making sure that the area where we're going to mount that foot is nice and clean in preparation to paint those holes. Now the holes are nice and clean, we'll go ahead, bit of touch-up paint, and we'll paint all the bare metal that we've just created with the holes. We just want to make sure we get the paint on all the bare metal just to stop it rusting. We'll let that dry and we'll be ready to mount the feet. So next we're going to mount the mounting feet to the car. Very important, silicone around the holes on the thread of the bolts. They do come with spring washers, little rubber seals as well, so I'll show you how to put those together. Bolt and spring washer through the top of the foot, and then the rubber seal on there. But we'll go ahead, the holes on the roof. So, yep, good. So next we'll put some silicone around the holes on the roof. We'll then just sit the rubber seals just over those bolt holes. We'll sit the bracket on. Now I like to put a little bit of sealant on the actual bolt itself. Up towards the washer. Same with the other bolt. Then we're going to take the 10mm headed nut on the inside. And the next one. $5mm Allen key and a 10mm socket. We'll tighten those down. And we'll repeat the process on the other 3 mounts. Now with a friend, we'll lift the roof rack back onto the car. Once again, careful not to set it down on the paint and scratch it. Yeah, on the outside. So as you're mounting it, have a look at the shape of the roof. On this particular car, we'll go in the front hole on the upper hole on the front, and to follow the shape of the roof, we'll go in the lower hole on the rear. Just drop down to that one there. And then that should sit nice and flush with the roof. No. Okay. Now we'll go ahead and put the 13mm nuts on the inside and tighten all those 4 up. And just start doing these bolts up finger tight at the moment. With the hole rather than sitting down tight on the bolt. Yep, so I'm just lifting the rack up so it sits nice and center around the hole with the bolt through it, just as we do it up. So I've got a 6mm Allen key and a 13mm socket. We'll go ahead and do this bolt up nice and tight. Move on to the back one. Now we just go around and tighten up the 13mm headed bolts that hold the backbone mounts to the roof platform. Now that's all done. Now we just need to put the interior back together and then go around the vehicle and make sure we wipe any marks that we've left from our arms or hands, and we're good to go. Just making sure that the plastic trim clips and the metal clips on the inside of the trims are where they should be. Sometimes they fall down, you need to find them, put them back on, otherwise the trims won't fit properly. Make sure they're both tight. Trims back in. Put the little trim covers back in. With these grab handles, there is a locating tab on each one of those, and there's holes up in the roof where they go, just making sure they go back in the right spot. In the installation, we've got these brackets left over. Now on some cars, they are used, most they don't. You can put them on the inside of the roof as extra spacing, but especially on this car, the roof lining doesn't allow for it. There's different cross beams and bracketry in there that is not flat, so you can't use a flat bracket. And that concludes the installation on the BT50 of the Supa 4x4 rack.